When we talk about the Bible or religion or church or any religious matters, how often do you say or hear people say, I think or I feel? Probably more than you can count. I know I sure have. But in the scriptures, we don't ever hear Jesus saying, I think or I feel. Oftentimes you hear him say, for it is written, just quoting scripture. Actually, I've counted at least 8 times in the New Testament where Jesus stated, for it is written. Let's go take a look at those here. Actually, working with ChatGPT here, I was able to come up with this list of 8 times that we see that Jesus stated, for it is written, or a variation of that in the New Testament. The first time we see is when he's being tempted by Satan in the desert. And we'll see here in Matthew 4, 4:4 and 4:7. We'll go ahead and read through those verses. We actually start here in verse 1. We can read through this here. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry. And when the tempter came to him, he said, if you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. You see, Jesus is quoting from Deuteronomy 8:3 there. Then the devil took him up into the holy city, set him on the pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge over you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. So Satan is quoting Psalms here, Psalm 91, verses 11 and 12. So think of that and how scary that is. The devil knows scripture as well, and he can twist it against you and use it against you if you don't understand it and don't know it. But Jesus did not let that trip him up. And in verse 7, he says, it is written again, also quoting from Deuteronomy 6:16. It is written, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. And then again, the devil took him up on an exceedingly high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. And Jesus said to him, away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve. So that's from Deuteronomy 6:13, also referenced 10:20, and then Joshua 24:14. Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. So think of that. The devil, knowing scripture as well, tried to twist it and use it against Jesus. Every time he just responded with it is written and quoted the scripture. Old Testament scripture, I would add, in Deuteronomy. Now, how many times have we heard that, we're under the new law now. We don't need to be as concerned with the Old Testament because it's the old law. Sure, it's good for history and things like that, but we're not under that law anymore. That is true that we are under the new law, but I would say that the Old Testament is as useful as it's ever been, and it's something that we really need to know. You see here, Jesus is quoting the Old Testament scripture here when he's being tempted by Satan. And let me go back to the other instances that we see of Jesus quoting the Old Testament in the New Testament here. So we just talked about the time where Jesus was tempted by Satan, and he's quoting from Deuteronomy here, with it is written. Those first three instances there. We also see in Matthew 11:10, Mark 1:2, and Luke 7:27. This is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before your face who will prepare the way before you. Quoting from Malachi 3:1, Jesus identifies John the Baptist as a prophesied forerunner. Also here, another instance, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you've made it a den of thieves. See that from the prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah. We see here talking about Isaiah 53 and the suffering of Christ. Lots of prophecy about Jesus to come in the Old Testament. The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. That's from Psalm and Isaiah 53, prophecy about the betrayal of Judas. So there's a lot of that we learn about Jesus and prophecy of things that were to come and things that were to happen from the Old Testament. It's definitely a lot more than just history and the old law, especially when you're reading the prophets. It prophesied a lot of what was to come with Jesus and fulfilling the scripture. Like here, even in Luke 24:46, thus it is written, and thus it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead the third day. So think of that. All these references to Old Testament scripture quoted in the New Testament. And then think of even the apostles when they were converting followers of Christ, even after Jesus' death, when they were going and spreading the gospel. The gospel was being written as they were living it. So they didn't have the benefit of being able to pull out of a New King James Bible or any other version of a fully written Bible that we have today. A lot of what they were using and preaching with was from the Old Testament. And I guess it's a challenge that I like to challenge myself, and I'll challenge you as well. Do we know the scripture well enough, the Old Testament or all the scripture in its entirety well enough to say, for it is written, when we're challenged with something that may be false or someone's trying to trip us up or to interpret scripture in their own self serving way, just as we saw Satan doing in Matthew? Can we respond with, for it is written? Do we know the word that good? I'll flip over here to John chapter 1 just to let you think on this. So here we have in John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. So, right there, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, right there, that tells me if we want to know God, we need to know the Word. We need to know what it says. And, getting back to the same point about that the early apostles did not have the New Testament fully written, and they were using Old Testament scripture to convert followers of Christ. Let's go to in the book of Acts, Acts chapter 8, with Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. So in Acts chapter 8, verse 26, starting there. Now an angel of the Lord spoke to Philip, saying, Arise and go toward the south along the road which goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is desert. So he arose and he went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, a eunuch of great authority under Candace, the queen of the Ethiopians, who had charge of all her treasury and had come to Jerusalem to worship, was returning. And sitting in his chariot, he was reading Isaiah the prophet. Then the Spirit said to Philip, Go near and overtake this chariot. So Philip ran to him and heard him reading the prophet Isaiah, and said, Do you understand what you are reading? And he said, How can I, unless someone guides me? And he asked Philip to come up and sit with him. The place in the scripture which he read was this: He was led as a sheep to the slaughter, and as a lamb before its shearer is silent. So he opened not his mouth. And this is Isaiah 53, verses 7 and 8. In his humiliation his justice was taken away. And who will declare his generation? For his life is taken from the earth. So the eunuch answered Philip and said, I ask you, of whom does the prophet say this? Of himself or of some other man? Then Philip opened his mouth, and beginning at this scripture in the Old Testament, Isaiah 53, and beginning at this scripture, preached Jesus to him. Now, as they went down the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, See, here is water. What hinders me from being baptized? Then Philip said, If you believe with all your heart, you may. And he answered and said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So he commanded the chariot to stand still, and both Philip and the eunuch went down into the water, and he baptized him. And when they came up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord caught Philip away, so that the eunuch saw him no more, and he went on his way rejoicing. But Philip was found at Azotus, and passing through, he preached in all the cities till he came to Caesarea. What an amazing story there! But he was already reading, the prophet Isaiah, and he just went and explained it to him and explained the story of Jesus based on that. So think of that. Do we know the scripture enough? Can we read, some verses in the Old Testament, read the prophecies of of the Old Testament and tie it to Jesus' story. We should be able to. So if you're watching this now, that's really my challenge to you is how well do we know the scripture? Do we know it well enough to be able to say for it is written when we're challenged or when something's brought up? Because Jesus is our example and he's the example that we should be living up to. And we really need to be in the word every day to be able to get to a point where we can say, for it is written and know where it is written. There's lots of technology now that makes it easier. You just saw here the use of Chat GPT. I also use the Bible app on my computer and on my phone. So if I remember a verse, I can type it in and it'll instantly pop up and tell me where it's found. So we have more tools than they ever have had. Even back then, even a few verses on a scroll was something that was hard to find. We have more access now to the word than we've ever had. So let's make full use of it. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.